A ruling will come out where parties, if you are a party to our proceeding, can comment, of course. So next slide. Sorry, I don't have the clicker. Yeah. So that's Chris's information. We have also a short summary from Justin Fong, who's going to talk about our summary of complaints for 2019 that we receive at the PUC.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so I just wanted to go over what we did in 2019. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Consumer Affairs branch, we are the funneling consumer complaint intake division of the CPUC. We handle generally utility, investor-owned sides of the connections when it comes to solar. And so it's generally accepted that that's the type of complaints we get. We do get complaints that we do forward to CSLB and things like that. So I'll go on with the presentation. Since our previous meeting, the Consumer Affairs branch of the CPUC has implemented the updated agency referral process between the Contractors State Licensing Board and the Department of Business Oversight for solar complaints. We presented that in August of last year. In terms of an agency matrix. In 2020, the Consumer Affairs branch will send a trip report to the CSLB for the 80 recorded contacts received in 2019. There are no referrals to DBO in 2019 for PACE-related complaints, so that's good. So that means if consumers are knowing, where they can go to handle their PACE complaints. And in 2019, just to give you kind of an overview of the percentage of solar contacts as it makes up CAB's total intake of other utility type complaints. We received around 27,000 recorded contacts from consumers. 726 of those contacts were solar, so that makes roughly 3% of total contacts. As of 2019, we have seen an uptick from 2017 of around 20%. However, these numbers are still pretty small. The next slide, if you can see it, essentially shows the breakdown between phone and written complaints. Those are the two options for consumers to complain or actually have queries with the Consumer Affairs branch. And you can't see this right here, but this essentially breaks down the top 5 referral categories. So when the Consumer Affairs branch reps receive solar contacts, who are they actually sending those solar complaints to? On the far left is utilities, no surprise there, as well as CSLB. So those are kind of the two areas after we receive a complaint, how we address the complaint. So for instance, if a consumer has an issue with an annual true-up, we will get online with the executive office of the respective IOU to try to address that concern if it's a maintenance issue or if it was the customer was on the wrong tariff at the time and then that gets reconciled, for instance. Just a background again on our jurisdictional processes, kind of covered from August 2019 for those that didn't attend that meeting. And then the Consumer Affairs branch has attempted to classify solar complaints over the last year in order to give a more granular understanding of what policy's been doing and what consumers are kind of perceiving from our viewpoint. NEM bill errors have been involved, so this essentially has been a majority, I'll show the next slide, of a problem with Southern California Edison. Consumers are signing up for solar, getting interconnected. To Dave's point, they are getting interconnected, they're paying off their systems, right, when the permits are permitted, and then they are waiting months. And this ranges anywhere between, I would say, 6 months to a year of actually getting on a NEM tariff from a regular residential tariff. It's a small number, so I don't know if I can truly extrapolate like that for all of Southern California, as in right, all of their customers are experiencing these NEM bill errors. We do see a high proportion, though, as you can see to the slide to the my left, that it is a pretty distinct trend that there is some type of technical issue with SCE. I don't know if Renee can comment on that on the phone, but we are seeing it where customers, sometimes they are made whole after the correction has been made. And this amounts to anywhere between, 500, hundreds to thousands of dollars in lost payments to the consumer. Not to mention that since the changing of the NEM tariff payout, that a lot of consumers are upset that they aren't, receiving retail rates for their generation. Sorry, one more thing. And as the trends kind of follow over the years, so I'll go back. So NEM annual true-ups are issue. Consumers sign up for NEM annual true-ups, and then with the implementation of time of use rates, we're kind of re-engineering their compensation structure. And so, which makes sense because they're later adopters, but they are less able to kind of handle these bills, is what we're seeing, is because they kind of amount to thousands of dollars as opposed to this zero, bill at the end of the year that they are, just a really meager bill that they were suspecting. NEM tariffs, customers want to be grandfathered into old tariffs that they no longer can be a part of. And then general maintenance issues and commission policies, kind of like what we've been talking about, of tariffs and then grandfathering and then closing out of certain tariffs to new customers. And customers want to get on those old tariffs because they're more lucrative. So why wouldn't you?
And I think oftentimes their salespeople told them they would be. Most of them are told they'll have a $0 bill, at least the people I talk to. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's hard
Okay,
to.
So,
Anyways.
was that Renee on the, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we are aware of this issue. It is a combination of technical issues and other related items. However, it seems that this is just impacting customers that were PTO'd in the last 12 months or so. Newer customers shouldn't be experiencing this issue.
When you
identified what was happening.
When you sorry, Renee, not to mean to cut you off. When you say newer customers, what time frame are we referring to? Like when was the fix?
I think billing gave us in the last 2 months. I think is when they wrote in the script to fix this issue. So customers that have been PTO'd within the last shouldn't be experiencing that long wait time to get profiled for.
Sorry, you cut out. I think what the last how long?
The customers that received PTO in the last 2 months.
Last 2 months. Okay.
Yes, in the last 2 months shouldn't be experiencing.
And then,
so, but anyone else before that did experiencing this issue, we are working with IT to get this issue fixed with them, and they are being made whole. So it is being whatever they would have seen from the point of their PTO. We are making sure that we bill them properly and retroactively.
and what is the current, if you were to ballpark, like an interconnection time period between the permit being signed, submitting the interconnection materials to interconnection for consumers in your district?
The application time, when we receive final documentation, we as long as we have everything, all the documentation from the applicant, we're turning around PTO fairly quickly anyway.
Do you have like a timeline in terms of days that happens? I know it's written, I think in tariffs, it's like 45 days, 45 business days or something like that. I don't know. You can.
Oh, you mean to profile them?
No, to get them actually interconnected and switched over from a previous like residential time of use rate to a net energy metering time of use rate.
Yes. So that means profile. So
okay.
So from the time that we receive the final paperwork, for us to interconnect them or to issue the permission to operate, like I said, it takes anywhere from 1 to 7 business, usually closer to 1.
1 to 7 businesses, okay.
Yeah, the issue has been profiling, getting them properly billed, so changing them over to time of use and properly billing them for any M credits. That was the issue that we experienced 8 months ago. That was an issue. But in the last 2 months, however, like I said, these customers that just received permission to operate in the last 2 months shouldn't be experiencing any delay in their profiling.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions, other questions from non-PUC people about the presentation? I saw Nora and then Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, on your slide 3, on the State of California Solar Consumer Protection Guide, where it talked about the wet signature and electronic signature, where it says will be allowed with conditions. What have those conditions been discussed?
Yeah, those decisions have been articulated in the decision that was voted out on February 6th. So they're the conditions we were talking about previously. Basically, a paper copy has to be given to the customer by default if it's door-to-door solicitation, and a wet signature needs to be offered to the customer by default unless they request an electronic if it's a door-to-door solicitation. I think that's...
And the audit trail.
And the audit trail has to be uploaded.
So
it's
if
a
there
new
is an
signature.
electronic signature now, there will be a document that shows like the IPS or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not a
computer number.
technology person, but you know, who opened it and who looked at it and what was the date and time of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and also there was a requirement that they must have a pre-existing email. So they're not allowed to have an email created by the salesperson. You know.
And so the other question is, when the customer is from now, as of September, I guess you're saying, the new customers, they're going to be given the option of getting the documents on paper or electronic. So.
That will be in effect in June, I believe.
Okay, in June. So
Yeah.
shouldn't it be better they should get it on paper and not electronic? Because electronic has been, that's why we're here.
Right, well, we had, that was a long battle that we've been working on for the last year, and this is where it landed, but I don't know if the Commissioner wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I think I share that sentiment. Unfortunately, where we came down on the final decision is the customer will be essentially defaulted the option that they should receive it as a hard copy. But if they're convinced that they can get it electronically, it will be an option. And unfortunately, fortunately, as part of that is a little more teeth to it in terms of the audit trail and the pre-existing email, but it is an option.
And then, of course, that's given in the consumer rights, know your rights, ask for it in a paper format, hopefully.
Yes, the guide will
Encouraged.
say that they can get a wet copy. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct.
I think that's it.
All right, thank you.
I have another woman in front of
Josh, or Leah?
Yeah.
Heather's keeping track of the.
No problem. I had two questions. One, Chris, is how soon do you think we can see the new attestation sheet as part of this new decision and/or the new interconnection portals that are going to be reconfigured to accept it? Do you have a date on that?
Don't have an exact date.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was just going back to these Edison complaints. So just so I understand it correctly, the issue was the time lag to get them onto the proper NEM tariff.
Yes.
And so how long was that taking?
For some customers, I saw as of January 2020, they still weren't. But it's the way that CAB receives complaints is such a small percentage. It's hard to like extrapolate, a bigger picture. But we did see certain consumers having to wait like 6 or 7 months even. Some were actually made whole. They were refunded the difference and they true upped essentially their their payment structure from the previous year.
Right.
Yeah, but, yeah, I would say, but according to Renee, I'll keep an eye on that to see if consumers are still complaining after that fix. And
I just want to make sure I understood the problem correctly. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Does anybody have the decision number for the February 6th decision so we can look it up?
It's decision 2002011.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it took a lot for us to be at least that, that default is that they give it to them in writing. But the issue is still with, the person at the door, right? If they're going to disclose that. So I just think the CSLB and CPUC, we really have to work on the media campaign for that because unfortunately, when you take this to the media outlets, they just hear the sensational part of it, fraud, right? So they don't hear the actually key. The key is that you give it the tool given to you by and protected by our state is that the salesman should tell you, and you should know. And we're saying that by default, it should be a written contract, right? So that way we get clarity on that for the consumers.
Was that a suggestion for another preventative outreach and education committee or working group project? Okay.
Hi, Justin Strawn. Just had a quick question on slide 9, which is the total number of solar contacts that the CPUC gets. Is there a way to see this in comparison to the number of solar installations that have been interconnected during this period of time? I think it was kind of a follow-up to the other gentleman's question
Right.
before.
I mean, yeah, that definitely
Yeah,
could.
we can get the interconnection
Data.
data. We also, yeah, we have that for definitely. I don't know if we have it today. But we also, I
Yeah,
had
I'll have to
another.
coordinate with Marna
Yeah.
and then we could show the differences. Yeah. But then again, it is, to keep in mind, it is a slice, right? So consumers are going to be contacting their utilities, they're going to be contacting their solar contractors and the solar companies themselves.
Oh, that reminded me of what I was going to say. So the other issue that we are all working on, and I'm sorry that I've been delayed in getting it going, but we are working on doing a complaint coordination effort, working with all the different places that complaints come into. So that would include the industry, the financiers, the Solar Association, the utilities, and the state agencies. And so we our complaint and tracking and monitoring working group, it has put together a survey we're going to send out to all of those different, I think I have the right contact for most of those agencies or groups. We're going to do a survey to see how you handle your complaints, how many you've been getting or how many you got in a certain time period, so we can just start to coordinate better on how, and then how do you resolve them, and how can we better work to resolve them together. So that's another thing that you can look forward to soon. And we have an intern that may be contacting you named Anais Cepeda, who's working on that.
Hey, sir, I do have Andrea on the line here, would like to ask a question.
Okay.
Andrea, go ahead.
Andrea Lynette, representing Click. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Andrea Lynette, representing Click. We wanted to support the recommendations regarding increasing the bonding, precluding direct payment to consumers, confirming permit and work completion, and the 7-day right to cancel also across the board. So just to chime in on that, we are taking some notes, so we'll have some concerns that we can communicate afterward. But one question I have right now is I heard that there was a Google Translate option on the website to look up registration and complaints. Google Translate is awful, and anybody who's used it can testify to that. Will there be another way for non-English speakers to get this information, such as by phone, or some other way?
Yes, we can definitely set up something with our task force to have somebody that speaks Spanish to answer the phone. We don't have anybody here from our IT shop, Rick, but is there any thought about what we can do with the website? I know right now we're somewhat in flux in that we're having to make sure that everything on our website is ADA compliant, so I think that's a priority. But Rick, have you been part of any meetings regarding having it in Spanish?
I haven't. Well, certainly one of the challenges is we do have contracts to be able to get work translated, but that does take time, and obviously the costs do add up. There are some state workers who do have the credentials to be able to do their bilingual positions, but we have a limited number of positions, and so part of that comes into workload. It takes them away from their other work. And so there's just a constant challenge. We're trying to prioritize things that we can get translated. Certainly, we're happy to have input on things we think are important, but to be able to say like an across the line kind of thing, it's just a real challenge staff-wise or financially to get that done.
But I'll ask Cynthia more. Could Anna Rodriguez assist in some way with this in doing translation? Or do you have anybody that's part of the Solar Task Force that could translate it?
No, I don't believe we have anyone on the Solar Task Force that speaks Spanish, but Anna could probably help with that.
Yes, okay.
I would just.
I think my concern is that people be able to pick up the phone and essentially speak to someone in their language, in their preferred language, and have them that person be able to look up the information and relay it in the language. So I understand the cost, that there are costs involved to make things accessible to those who most need them to be accessible. So perhaps this can be something that can be costed out, whether it's active translation of the information on the website, doing everything in different languages, or having, customer service representative available when needed.
Mike?
The CSLB licensing division, which is over the call center, has a number of translator positions that are allocated for this purpose. I believe you can just call into the 1-800 number and request that, and if we have one available, that can be provided. So we can I'll speak to the licensing chief about that.
Yeah, this sounds like another project for the Preventative Education and Outreach Working Group, which Rick is on. But I do agree with Andrea's comments that serving the non-English speakers in our state is very important, especially on this topic, because a lot of the victims and the consumer victims we've seen, as well as the providers and the home improvement salespeople and contractors speak other languages. So I think universally it's an important issue. We need to move on to DBO because they have a lot to report as well. And then we will open it up for public comment. I have 2 people I've asked to speak, and then we'll open it up for everybody else.
First, Cooley with our communications office is going to present on our new webpage.
Hello, thank you. My name is Cooley. I'm the Director of Education Outreach at the Department of Business Oversight. I just wanted to quickly go over the new webpage that the Department of Business Oversight has built. We've been working on this for a while. Some of you may be already aware that we have a webpage that is dedicated just for the licensees of PACE. But so this is the PACE program page for PACE program administrators. But we've built a new page that is basically dedicated for consumers. Right now, this page is not yet active or live. We're at the very final stages of approval to get it published. We're anticipating probably the end of this week or the beginning of next week before we go live with this page. I'm just going to briefly go over it. Again, this page is focused towards consumers, and I'm going to address the Spanish speaking here. This page has not yet been translated into Spanish. We are considering doing it, but we do have a call center Our Consumer Services Office has, I know, at least 2 individuals who are certified Spanish speakers. So if anyone or consumers need translation, they could definitely call in. And we do have one person on our outreach team that is Spanish speaking as well. So when they do go out and do these outreach events, they're able to talk to Spanish speaking individuals. So we're going to go over this page really quick. Again, this is focused towards consumers, and we'll be funneling consumers to this page who are focused on or have any kind of PACE administrator issues. We have the file complaint button here, which means they could just go directly to the page where they could file a complaint. We have frequently asked questions, which would take them all the way down to this section. We have a lot of different frequently asked questions that we have kind of vetted through the different events and the different feedback we've been getting from different consumers. And we look towards, adding towards this list as much as we can to try to help consumers. And then finally, we have kind of the page where we list our different administrators, PACE program administrators, and then you could scroll down further to get your solicitor or solicitor agent lists, which are accessed through these links. And then going back to our PACE consumer page, it's pretty much, again, geared very much towards consumers. We have this resource section where we share a lot of different resources from our different agencies and partners. We also have a couple different press releases here. And then finally, we provide a little bit of history in addition to links to PACE consumer laws that are relevant to the DBO. Is there any questions? That's pretty much it. I just wanted to highlight the page that we're going to be publishing pretty soon here.
Thank you, Ku. It's exciting. I know I use your website, the part that's available already a lot.
Sorry, this is Josh at Cal. So when is this page going to be live, or is it already live?
The next week at the latest.
Right, yeah, we're shooting towards probably this Friday to publish the page. But again, I'm kind of waiting on my final approvals. Like I said, it'll be either this Friday or Monday or Tuesday next week at the very latest.
And then a follow-up question, and apologies, I haven't used it before. So the search by agent function, that's live right now, or is that going to be, okay?
Yes. Works. So you just have to be a little bit patient with it. Because it literally, so you're looking at solicitor or solicitor agents. When you click on it, it takes a little bit to load. It's literally loading, if I remember correctly, something like 20,000 or more cells. So it just takes a little bit to load. You just have to be kind of patient with it.
Yeah, it seems that way. Okay, thank you.
I think I saw PACE loan up there, and per the statute, it is an assessment. Let's make that clear on the webpage if we could, please.
Oh, yeah, so sorry about that. Again, we're still doing our final edits, and thank you for bringing that to our attention.
On the file complaint, I love that it's way up there, right, clear where, you could get it. I know that since this has been happening, that I've been on the portal, there's been changes on what the complaint looks like. I would like to see if you could click on it to see what it looks like, because I'm having issues with it. Never had a couple of heated conversations with the Office of DBO, with some of the Spanish people, Spanish speaking, I forgot her name right now. But, I told her, hey, we're on the same boat here together. We're trying to work this out. This is new for us. So the mail copy, because I can't do all these on mail. I have to, make a mail, send it in by mail. I just wanted to see what it looks like, if it's still the same, because it was really confusing for me. And so I don't know if that complaint is just a general complaint you're using that you had from somewhere else, or if it's particular to this topic on solar and rooftop and these assessment loans.
Yeah, so we we heard this complaint, and we've been working on it very diligently. So we do have the general complaint form, both in English and Spanish, and then we have one that's been basically tailor-made for the PACE program. And these forms are, I believe, they're PDFs, but you could totally fill it out, and then you have to fill it out and mail it in. That's kind of the catch, or you can email it to us as well. But yeah, thank you.
Cool. Would there be any links to any public advocate groups or consumer advocate groups on that page?
Yes. So we had a little section here that was just recently added. It's just the PACE consumer advocacy groups. We're looking to add towards our resource section here. But if you open that up, it provides a lot of different, it's really a partial list, but we can add more to this for any kind of resources. Again, all geared towards consumers.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the rest of DBO's report or update? We do need to get moving. I did want to make note that I was going to skip the break. I thought I deleted it from the agenda, but it's still here. We're not taking a break because we don't have time.
All right.
Apologies.
I'll quickly go through updates. As most of you know, we have, since Commissioner Alvarez has come on board, we've been having stakeholder meetings with consumer advocates, and those are continuing. We will be having a meeting in the next couple of weeks with the stakeholders between our PACE licensees and consumer advocates. The goal is to aid in communication and helping to resolve consumer complaints that the advocates are seeing in their work. As another update, the administration has a proposal to adopt the California Consumer Financial Protection law in California law and expand the department's oversight over other financial products and services, over essentially all financial products and services in the marketplace. It gives us increased authority over unfair, deceptive, or abusive business practices. It allows us to capture entities that may not have been falling within our licensing laws in the past. So this will give, assuming this proposal moves forward, it will give us a lot more authority when financing issues come up. We still cannot always overcome the federal preemption issues on financing, but we will have authority to go right up against that in terms of who we have oversight over. It also, the concept, we will be renaming the department the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. There's an innovation piece to it to have a unit that is forward-looking about what type of financing products are coming on the market. We'll have expanded research capabilities and positions to evaluate products in the marketplace, emerging products, existing products, consumer behaviors, and have a lot more fact-based decision-making that through that process, there will be expanded outreach to communities, substantially expanded outreach. So we are looking forward to that proposal. It's a mini CFPB proposal mirrored after the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, expanding the department so it will be the financial regulator in this state. Getting back to just our PACE oversight, our rulemaking is continuing. The comment period ended on December 9th, and so we are in that deliberative process of considering comments that came in and the rules. And we anticipate probably not in the next 30 days, but probably within the next 60 days, having some revisions to the rulemaking out for public comment. Additionally, under the California financing law, where the PACE licensees, PACE program administrators licensees are licensed. Annual reports are due on March 15th. So this will be the first year that PACE program administrators are providing annual reports to the department. Existing law under the Streets and Highways Codes requires biannual reporting of a lot of information to local entities, and that the local entities post that on their websites. So just a reminder for anyone looking on data, on volume, types of improvements installed, delinquency data, default data, estimates on energy saved, that should be available now on local agencies' pages. And we will have similar information reported to us, and we will be aggregating the data that gets reported to us as part of the report we release under the California financing law. Additionally, we've discussed previously that the department is examining its licensees, including our PACE program administrators. So we have some examinations starting, rounding towards completion. We're in the process of drafting and releasing regulatory reports to our licensees. So that process is continuing. With respect to complaints received by the department, through January of this year for 2020, we've received 10 PACE-related complaints. In 2019, we had 160 complaints, so our total complaints PACE-related would be at 170. Those are in various stages of review or referrals. A lot have been referred to other agencies, CSLB, a lot we have joint authority over, given our joint oversight. The complaints are familiar: work not performed to satisfaction, quantities differ from actual equipment installed, the terms are different from what was presented, the approvals are fraudulent, similar to what we've all heard in the past about the complaints, but the volume appears to be decreasing somewhat. You saw earlier our search page. It didn't load yet, but we've made updates based on feedback. So you can see now more information on the agents, the location, where their location, so that consumers can tell that the name matches the person working in their area. There should be the HIS number, and just to point out, we're missing quite a lot of HIS numbers. So either the PACE solicitor agent is not also soliciting the home improvement contracts, or there's an issue with not being registered under the HIS registration requirement. There could be a lot of factors going on, but just a reminder that we'd want to see those HIS numbers. It is CSLB doing the background check on those agents, and if not, then our PACE program administrators are required to do the background checks. In terms of legislative updates, there's currently one bill moving through the legislature, AB 1551. It would prohibit an PACE assessment contract from containing a prepayment penalty, and would prohibit assessment contracts where the property has a reverse mortgage on it. There are other provisions in it, but those are moving through the process. And similarly, under our California financing law regarding prepayment penalties, last year, a bill, AB 539, prohibited prepayment penalties for small loans up to $10,000. So this bill would similarly prohibit prepayment penalties for consumer loans. It was a two-year bill. It passed the first house in January, and so now it is in the Senate. And that concludes our update. Does anyone have any questions?
So Lynette and Heather, sorry. Lynette and then Lulu.
I recall doing is turned off. It's high tech. I recall at the last meeting where I believe in the PACE in the DBO presentation about PACE was that you found that a significant number of PACE complaints were generally contractor related. Are you still seeing that?
We are, I'm showing that 45 were referred to CSLB. A lot of them, in terms of the subject matter of them, we are seeing, for example, a lot of misrepresentation still. The contract approvals are fraudulent. Consumers advised it was a free government program. Consumers have not ever received a copy of the contract. But for our purposes at DBO, all of the responsibility for ensuring those don't happen is on the PACE program administrator. Lulu, and then. Oh, sorry, I can't see who. Oh, that's Nora. Oh, sorry, I can't see who that is. It's Nora. Okay, clarification from Nora. Nora wants a clarification first. On whether it's contractor related. Well, there may be activities the contractor is doing that could violate their own licensing laws. But from our jurisdictional purposes, our program administrators are responsible for those who are soliciting property owners on their behalf. The PACE program administrator. Yeah. Lulu, and then Marna, and then we have some people on the phone that have, I believe, I'm not sure if it's public comment or questions related to this, so I'll allow that.
Well, for the DBO, I mean, thanks for, getting on this. I bet it must be overwhelming. But just on the issue on PACE, I think if we could offer some kind of clarity for all consumers as far as when they do this complaint, because it is, the consumer only knows the person that came to their doors. They don't know how to put together a financier versus that salesperson that came to the door. I see for right now, for the last 3 months at least, I've been helping a lot of people who are now, in 2017, they finally got, I guess, their PACE assessment processed, and they had no clue because there's no clarity on, what an assessment is to them. There's no checks, like as far as the county telling, hey, your property is going to be assessed, you're going to be charged this, and you can only pay these PACE loans when you pay your taxes. They're like, I don't care if I could pay it once, I'll pay a monthly, but I can't do, that yearly payment on my assessment. And they don't even understand that if they are paying a mortgage, and that the mortgage is already has, installed that they're gonna make their tax payment on their tax bill payment, the tax bill has to be paid completely. They don't take partials. So there's some form, and the complaint form should reflect, are you paying this via your mortgage? Are you paying this directly? Do you own your property or something? So they have an idea that this PACE assessment is going through that, because they don't have a clue. I mean, right now, because they come, look at last year, my tax bill, now look what it is. I don't know what to do. So they don't know how to piece together that, what happened to them with the solar or with an AC unit or with a roof happens to be a PACE. So, we need to be more clear on the website too of what this complaint is for, because we only do it, as far as a CSLB. And as far as the return response, and when you get a complaint, I think you have to think like a 5-year-old. How would you explain to this person that you got their complaint, you've also forwarded to CSLB, but that you need to make sure that the DBO, you want information about a loan complaint, not the contractor complaint, because they get really lost. So I just think we have to be more clear when you respond to the consumer about their complaint, what you are there to help them with, as far as what you're regulating, right? Because they don't know how to piece those two things together.
All right, thank you. That's helpful. We'll bring that back and look at retooling our information.
Colleen, I had a quick question about the new legislation you were talking about. Does it expand your capacity or ability to prosecute financial issues or to regulate financial issues regardless of who the market participant is? Or would it still only be limited to, anyone who's under PACE?
Oh, it expands our oversight to anyone delivering of financial goods or services, and the standard we would be charged with enforcing is whether the actions were unfair, deceptive, or abusive. So it would give us broader authority in those categories against
So that
any
brings
product
under
or
the
service.
umbrella of the other players that we've had an issue with, possibly the unsecured.
I mean, Green Sky and all that.
Green Sky and Mosaic are the primary ones that I can think of off the top of my
Potentially,
head.
yeah.
But
Potentially, the limits, of course, would still be the federal preemption to the extent an entity is a
Federally.
national chartered entity. We
so
may
they-
still have limits, we would still have limits, preemption limits, but the standard is a state police power for unfair, deceptive, abusive practices, so it gives us a lot of room.
Okay, well, sounds like
For
something we'll have to
protection.
discuss more.
Right, it has to be
Yes.
explored a little bit more, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll discuss it.
And just other things I forgot, if the DBO could also get a hold of all the counties with their county assessors. They don't know you guys are doing this. They don't. I've asked them. Tulare County is one of my challenges right now, for them to understand that why I need them to help their customers to get that tax bill so they could submit the complaint so that we could know what PACE loan they got, because they don't know. Two, oh gosh, that one escaped me and it was really important too. On the recommendations for the oh Lord, totally left my head. I'll come back, sorry.
Hi, Colleen. Question for you. I was at my house the other day, and I had some folks from a solar company, whose name shall be nameless, that misrepresented. They said they were from PG&E to discuss the bill that we had received. Asked me if I was the one that received the bill, and I finally figured out that they were from a solar company trying to sell me solar. So with that misrepresentation, who would I actually lodge a complaint with? Would the solar company then be responsible for the actions of those salespeople, or would that fall on the CSLB?
That, if it's not PACE related, it wouldn't fall under our jurisdiction, so for the
So
solar
it's only
sale.
only when it's PACE misrepresentations, then the PACE providers, but everywhere else it's the CSLB.
It depends on the
I would say in that case, it would
activity.
be the PUC, because we work with the utilities, and I've heard of this happening in San Diego a lot lately. Multiple friends have contacted me about this, and I know what company it is. I think, we need to work with the utilities as well. So the PUC, it could fall in the PUC jurisdiction a little bit, but as far as it should be the CSLB also, it's.
Misrepresentation on any level should be treated the same. That would be my approach to it, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a contractor issue, for sure. So at CSLB, definitely. And I think in almost all these cases, CSLB is there. And then it's whether or not the other agencies need to partner. Is that right? Do you guys agree?
The
Yeah. I would
Consumer
agree.
Affairs Branch takes complaints about misrepresentation when people are misrepresenting utilities. So probably I would send a complaint to us and send a complaint to CSLB.
Sorry, I remembered. So,
Yes, we have people online that we do need to let speak, but
well, I'll just say real quick, the recommendation also on the PACE loans processed and timeline when they are being assessed, the property's already being charged, that you would request, or somehow that the client would be able to request what that PACE assessment is for, when was it installed, because these people were affected in 2016, and the people I'm recently helping, their assessment loan was effective 2018 for something supposedly they were installed in 2017. So the timelines were not connecting. I was like, okay, so if you're telling me you have a call and it was recorded in 2016, and you're saying that they bought something in 2018, so that's why now in 2019 taxes are being asked to pay, you know? So.
Okay, so on the line, we have a request to comment from Kathleen Murray of Public Counsel. Are you there? I'm sorry it took us so long to get to you. Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, there I am.
Yes.
Hi. I wanted to provide a little perspective from the legal service industry about the trajectory of PACE complaints that we are seeing to provide more context for the statistics that were already provided. We are not seeing a slowdown in complaints, but rather are seeing them snowball. In the first 6 weeks of 2020, we've seen 23 PACE complaints from our regular intake and referred from the Riverside DA's office. And of the cases that we believe have strong legal claims, we are trying to provide direct assistance to 15 cases that have financing applied for post January 1st, 2019. These are major forgery or no work cases. Excuse me, there's a delay in my voice, but that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And that does reflect what we were trying to convey, is that there are many places that these complaints are going into, many places. And, you know, a lot of them are CBOs, legal aid agencies, nonprofits, the utilities themselves, the district attorneys in their area, the police. I mean, there is, so we do not have a good handle on how many, you know, real cases there are. We only can track what we receive official complaints on. Right? Or informal, we call them informal, but, you know, a filed complaint.
The law has changed so much in the past few years that it's very helpful to hear when complaints are received about actions that occurred after various protections were put into the law, because it helps us measure whether or not those protections are having the impact intended. So thank you, Kathleen.
And that reminds me that perhaps we should invite Lauren Dossi to speak on that settlement that maybe the cases that Kathleen was discussing came from. Are you still there, Lauren?
I am, yes.
So did you want to just
Can you hear
share? Yes. Would you like to share a little bit about the settlement with Renovate and what is happening now?
I'm happy to. This is DDA Lauren Dossi from Riverside County. I was one of, we had 7 different counties and prosecuting agencies that were involved in the public settlement against Renovate America, the program, the PACE administrator of the HERO program. That case, the complaint and judgment was filed. It was a negotiated disposition settlement with Renovate. We filed that here in Riverside over the summer in early August. And as part of the resolution of the claim, of the complaint, there are, you know, it's a very lengthy injunction about what Renovate can and can't do to address the misrepresentations that we were seeing. And as a component of the settlement, Renovate agreed to pay $2.8 million into what we're calling a side prey restitution fund for homeowners to seek individualized legal advice about their particular situation, because as public prosecutors, we're not able to sit down with each homeowner and really address what, if anything, what legal remedies they may have. So this was kind of a public-private system that we set up to get the type of individualized attention that each of these homeowners needed. So that 2.8 will be paid in quarterly installments over the next, until 2023, so over the next 3 years. The goal is to select public interest law firms from throughout the state so that no matter where the homeowner was situated, they were able to get relief from this fund. And another important component of the fund is that it is not limited to homeowners who obtained assessments through the HERO program. It is available for any homeowner who received an assessment from any competing PACE administrator. So, you've got your Y-Green, your CalFirst, your EEE. All of those homeowners would be eligible for relief under these funds. And so we had a first wave of restitution come in, and we selected 6 firms throughout the state. So our offices have been receiving, when our offices receive consumer complaints, we're able to determine which firm would best be able to handle their particular complaint. So that's kind of
Great.
the gist of what we got going on. If anyone has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer.
Do we have any questions? I just wanted to comment that we have made sure to put that information on our website, and I believe all 3, and I saw it on the DBO website that's going to be consumer facing, and then I believe CSLB also has done that. I don't, Rick was doing that.
Do we have the 6 firms on there?
Yeah. There aren't, unfortunately, any in San Joaquin Valley, but there's one that's a statewide one based in the Bay Area, I think, that people can call. Yeah, that's covering all the parts of the state that the other ones aren't.
That's correct.
Yeah. And then, so do we have any more questions for DBO before we kind of just move on to public? And that was my first public commenter, and then I have another question on the phone. And yes, Nora? Go ahead.
My name is Nora, and I'm with Central California Legal Services, and I just wanted to comment that this sounds really good moving forward, but we're still dealing with clients that prior to 2019, when all this new rules and regulations are coming in, I just want to make a note that we're still dealing with the companies, the solar PACE companies, the Y-Greens, the Renovates, the 3Es. So we still have clients that we're still trying to resolve issues from years past. So just
I was wondering,
that out there.
I do, I have a question for Lauren on that, but I would also comment that we are still working on what do we do with those cases. So we will look forward to, hopefully you guys can submit comments again and when we have a restitution fund proposal. Lauren, are people who got into PACE or solar years prior to the settlement eligible to go get these services?
Yes, I would say. My office, our prosecuting offices are not making any comment on any applicable statute of limitations. They are able to receive assistance from one of the public interest law firms who would be able to look into the situation, determine what the applicable statute of limitations is, and then kind of go from there. But the restitution fund will apply regardless of the time.
Okay, thank you. So I had asked Chris Peterson to comment a little just on the transition that E3 made to Fortify. Would you? Sure. Okay, so do you need a microphone? Wait, let's get a microphone.
Jesse, hybrid